I do 3 paragraphs.
And then switch.
Yeah.
Okay. Usually 2 to 3 books. That's fine. Not sure why the song's going on. Hare Krishna. Reading Vedic Paradigm, edited by His Holiness Dharma Goswami from the teachings of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jai. Starting on chapter 8 today, Lord Krishna's childhood. Would you like to start, Dr. Billy?
Yeah, I can. Okay. After Vasudeva adjusted things as they had been before, he carried Krishna to Gokula, and all the doors and gates became similarly closed. The gatekeepers awoke and heard the newborn child crying. Kamsa was waiting to hear the news of the child's birth, and the gatekeepers immediately approached him and informed him that the child was born. At that time, Kamsa got up from his bed very quickly and exclaimed, "Now the cruel death of my life is born." Kamsa became perplexed now that his death was approaching, and his hair scattered. Immediately he proceeded towards the place where the child was born. Devaki, on seeing her brother approaching, prayed in a very meek attitude to Kamsa, "My dear brother, please do not kill this female child. I promise that this child will be the wife of your son. Therefore, don't kill her. You are not to be killed by any female child. That was the prophecy. You are to be killed by a male child, so please do not kill her. My dear brother, you have killed so many of my children who were just born, shining as the sun. That is not your fault. You have been advised by demoniac friends to kill my children. But now I beg you to excuse this girl at least. Let her live as my daughter." Kamsa was so cruel that he did not listen to the pitiful prayers of his sister Devaki. He forcibly grabbed the newborn child to rebuke his sister and attempted to dash her on the stone mercilessly. This is a graphic example of a cruel demon who could sacrifice all relationships for the sake of personal gratification. But immediately, the child slipped out of his hands, went up into the sky, and appeared with 8 arms as the younger sister of Vishnu. She was decorated with nice garments and nice flower garlands and ornaments. In her 8 hands she held a bow, lance, arrows, sword, conch shell, disc, club, and shield. Seeing the appearance of the child, who was actually the goddess Durga, all the demigods from different planets like Siddhaloka, Charanaloka, Gandharvaloka, Apsaraloka, Kinnaraloka, and Ragaloka presented her with various articles and began to offer their respective prayers. From above, the goddess addressed Kamsa, "You rascal! How can you kill me? The child who will kill you is already born before me somewhere within this world. Don't be so cruel to your poor sister."
There's an interesting, because one might say, why was Kamsa killing all of the children, Devaki and Vasudeva, if he was told by that voice in the sky that it would be the 8th child?
Right.
So why would he need to kill the first, or the second, or the third?
Right.
And actually, Vasudeva convinced him not to, as far as I understand. I think this is talked about in Garga Samhita. Vasudeva had convinced him not to touch any hairs on any of the kids' heads, let alone, kill them. But as it's mentioned here, due to the association that he took with his demoniac friends, they actually convinced him. That was very briefly mentioned by Devaki, where she said, "You are not to be killed by the female child. You have killed so many of my children who are just born shining as the sun. That is not your fault. You have been advised by demoniac friends to kill my children." Yeah. So it's a little bit of a backstory on that.
I really like how Devaki is still being even respectful to Kamsa. She really is. She's like, it's not your fault. You're taking the association of demons. Like, she's not even like
Which is true.
being harsh or mean to him. She's just like, my brother, please. It's so exalted.
Yeah. We learn a lot from the way that Vasudeva and Devaki speak to Kamsa on how to how a little bit of flattery is needed when dealing with these demoniac personalities.
Right.
Because in doing so, we kind of reel them in to hearing what we have to. Because if someone's not hearing this, then what's the point?
Right.
So in order to gain the attention of their ears, you kind of have to, conform to what it is that they want to hear.
Right.
So what do we want to hear? We want to hear the glorification of ourselves. That's what demons want most.
Right.
Chant my name, don't chant God's name, chant my name. So that's what Vasudeva and Devaki does. That's what Vasudeva does on the chariot, and that's what Devaki is doing here in the prison cells.
Right.
But an expert preacher will do that, and then very subtly work in the Krishna conscious philosophy as well.
Yeah.
So it's nice. Okay. After this appearance, the goddess Durga became known by various names in various parts of the world. Is that the end of your paragraph there, or was that?
I don't know. I just finished her.
Okay. I usually end it like so. Annotation. Otherwise, it kind of throws me off. After hearing these words, Kamsa became very much overwhelmed with fear. Out of pity, he immediately released Vasudeva and Devaki from the bondage of their shackles and very politely began to address them. He said, "My dear sister and brother-in-law, I've acted just like a demon in killing my own nephews, your children, and thereby I've given up all consideration of our intimate relationship. I do not know what will be the result of these envious acts of mine. Probably I shall be sent to hell where killers of brahmanas go. My dear sister Devaki, you are so gentle and kind. Please excuse me. Don't be aggrieved by the death of your children, which I have caused. My dear sister Devaki and brother-in-law Vasudeva, kindly excuse the atrocities I have committed against you. I am very poor-hearted, and you are so great-hearted, so take compassion upon me and excuse me." While Kamsa was speaking to his brother-in-law and sister, tears flowed from his eyes, and he fell down at their feet. Believing the words of Durga Devi, whom he had tried to kill, Kamsa immediately released his brother-in-law and sister. He personally unlocked the iron shackles and very sympathetically showed his friendship for his family members. When Devaki saw her brother so repentant, she also became pacified and forgot all his atrocious activities against her children. Vasudeva took the opportunity of Kamsa's benevolence and informed him that his atheistic activities were also due to the misconception of life, namely taking the material body to be the self. When Vasudeva talked with Kamsa in such an illuminating way, Kamsa became very much pleased, and his guilt for killing his nephews was subsided. With the permission of his sister Devaki and brother-in-law Vasudeva, he returned his home with a relaxed mind. But the next day, Kamsa called all his counselors together and narrated to them all the incidents that had happened the night before. All the counselors of Kamsa were demons and eternal enemies of the demigods. They became depressed upon hearing their master speak of the night's events, and although they were very not much experienced or learned, they began to give instructions to Kamsa as follows. "Dear sir, let us now make arrangements to kill all children who are born within the last 10 days in all towns, counties, villages, and pasturing grounds. Let us execute this plan indiscriminately. We think that the demigods cannot do anything against us if we perform these atrocities. They are always afraid of fighting with us, and even if they wish to check our activities, they will not dare to do so." The meeting of Nanda and Vasudeva. Although Krishna was the real son of Vasudeva and Devaki, because of Kamsa's atrocious activities, Vasudeva could not enjoy the birth ceremony of his son. But Nanda Maharaj, the foster father, celebrated the birth ceremony of Krishna very joyfully. The next day, it was declared that a male child had been born to Yashoda. According to Vedic custom, Nanda Maharaj called for learned astrologers and brahmanas to perform the birth ceremony. After the birth of a child, the astrologers calculate the moment of the birth and make a horoscope of the child's future life. Another ceremony takes place after the birth of the child. Family members take baths, cleanse themselves, and decorate themselves with ornaments and nice garments. Then they come before the child and the astrologer to hear the future life of the child. Nanda Maharaj and the other members of the family dressed and sat down in front of the birthplace. All the brahmanas who were assembled there on this occasion chanted auspicious mantras. According to the rituals, while the astrologers performed the birth ceremony, all the demigods are also worshipped on this occasion, as well as the forefathers of the family. Nanda Maharaj distributed to the brahmanas 200,000 cows, which were all decorated with cloth and ornaments. He gave the brahmanas not only cows in charity, but also hills of grain decorated with ornaments and golden bordered cloth.
After the birth ceremony, Nanda Maharaja decided to go to Mathura to pay the annual tax to the government of Kamsa. Before leaving, he called for the able cowherd men of the village and asked them to take care of Vrindavana in his absence. When Nanda Maharaja arrived in Mathura, Vasudeva got the news and was very eager to congratulate his friend. He immediately went to the place where Nanda Maharaja was staying. When Nanda saw Vasudeva, he felt that he had regained his life. Nanda, overwhelmed with joy, immediately stood up and embraced Vasudeva. Vasudeva was received very warmly and offered a nice place to sit. Anxious about his two sons, who had been put under the protection of Nanda without Nanda's knowledge, Vasudeva inquired about them with great anxiety. Both Balarama and Krishna were the sons of Vasudeva. Balarama was transferred to the womb of Rohini, Vasudeva's own wife, but Rohini was kept under the protection of Nanda Maharaja. Krishna was personally delivered to Yashoda and exchanged with her daughter. Nanda Maharaja knew that Balarama was the son of Vasudeva, although he did not know that Krishna was also Vasudeva's son. But Vasudeva was aware of this fact and inquired very eagerly about Krishna and Balarama. Vasudeva then addressed him, "My dear brother, you were old and very anxious to beget a son, and yet you had none. Now by the grace of the Lord, you are fortunate to have a very nice son. I think that this incident is very auspicious for you. Dear friend, I was imprisoned by Kamsa, and now I am released. Therefore, this is another birth for me. I had no hope of seeing you again, but by God's grace I can see you." In this way, Vasudeva indirectly expressed his anxiety about Krishna. Krishna was sent incognito to the bed of Mother Yashoda, and after very pompously celebrating his birth ceremony, Nanda went to Mathura. So Vasudeva was very pleased and said, "This is a new birth for me." He never expected that Krishna would live, because all his other sons had been killed by Kamsa. Vasudeva expressed his sorrow due to not being able to give protection to his own sons born of Devaki. He was thinking that religious principles, economic development, and the satisfaction of his senses were therefore all lost.
Upon hearing this, Nanda Maharaj replied, "My dear Vasudeva, I know that you are very much aggrieved because the court king Kamsa killed all your sons and daughters. All your sons born of Devaki. Although the last child was a daughter, Kamsa could not kill her, and she has entered into the celestial planets. My dear friend, do not be aggrieved. We are all being controlled by our past unseen activities. Everyone is subjected to his past deeds, and one who is conversant with the philosophy of Kirtan and its reactions is a man intelligent. As a man, I'm tired. Dozed off. Where are we at?
As a man in knowledge.
Man in knowledge. Such a person will not be aggrieved at any incident, happy or miserable." Vasudeva then replied, "My dear Nanda, if you have already paid the government taxes, then return soon to your place, because I think that there may be some disturbances in Gokula." After the friendly conversation, what Vasudeva is referring to is that Kamsa and his goons are going out, killing all the children, trying to. So he's telling Nanda Maharaj to get back and.
Oh, that is what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I when I first read this, I was like, what is he talking about here?
That's what's going on. So you can imagine the plight of Nanda Maharaj to get home as soon as he can, to make sure his sons are okay and everything's alright. After the friendly conversation between Nanda Maharaj and Vasudeva, Vasudeva returned to his home. Nanda Maharaj and the other cowherd men who had come to Mathura to pay their taxes also returned home. Putana killed. After consulting with his demoniac ministers, Kamsa instructed a witch named Putana, who knew the black art of killing small children by ghastly sinful methods, to kill all kinds of children in the cities, villages, and pasturing grounds. Such witches can play their black art only where there is no chanting or hearing of the holy name of Krishna. It is said that wherever the chanting of the holy name of Krishna is done, even negligently, all bad elements, witches, ghosts, and dangerous calamities immediately disappear. Such witches are called Kechai, which means that they can fly in the sky. This black art of witchcraft is still practiced by some women in the remote northwestern side of India. They can transfer themselves from one place to another on the branch of an uprooted tree. My turn? Or still your turn?
You can go more if you want.
Putana entered the county of Gokula, the residential quarter of Nanda Maharaj, without permission. Dressing herself just like a beautiful woman, she entered the house of Mother Yashoda. She appeared very beautiful, with raised hips, nicely swollen breasts, earrings, and flowers in her hair. She looked especially beautiful on account of her thin waist. She was glancing at everyone with very attractive looks and smiling face. And all the residents of Vrindavan were captivated. The innocent cowherd woman thought that she was the goddess of fortune appearing in Vrindavan, with a lotus flower in her hand. It seemed to them that she had personally come to see Krishna, who was her husband. Because of her exquisite beauty, no one checked her movement, and therefore she freely entered the house of Nanda Maharaj. Putana, the killer of many children, found baby Krishna lying on a small bed. She could at once perceive that the baby was hiding his unparalleled potencies, which resembled 5 covered ashes. Putana thought, quote, "This child is so powerful that he can destroy the whole universe immediately."
Krishna showed the nature of a small baby and closed his eyes, as if to avoid the face of Putana. This closing of the eyes is interpreted and studied in different ways by the devotees. Some say that Krishna closed his eyes because he did not like to see the face of Putana, who had killed so many children and who had now come to kill him. Others say that Putana hesitated to take the baby on her lap because something extraordinary was being dictated to her from within, and in order to give her assurance, Krishna closed his eyes so that she would not be frightened. And yet others interpret in this way. Krishna appeared in order to kill the demons and give protection to the devotees, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Paritranya sadhunam vinasya cha dukshtatam. The first demon to be killed was a woman. According to Vedic rules, the killing of a woman, a brahmana, cows, or a child is strictly forbidden. Krishna was obliged to kill the demon Putana, and because the killing of a woman is forbidden according to Vedic Shastra, he could not help but close his eyes. Another interpretation is that Krishna closed his eyes because he simply took Putana to be his nurse. Putana came to Krishna just to offer her breast for the Lord to suck. Krishna is so merciful that, even though he knew Putana was there to kill him, he took her as his nurse or mother. When the baby Krishna closed his eyes, Putana took him on her lap. She did not know that she was holding death personified. If a person makes a snake for a rope, he dies. Similarly, Putana had killed so many babies before meeting Krishna, and she mistook him to be like them, but now she was accepting the snake that would kill her immediately. When Putana was taking baby Krishna on her lap, both Yashoda and Rohini were present, but they did not forbid her because she was so beautifully dressed, and because she showed motherly affection towards Krishna. They could not understand that she was a sword within a decorated case. Putana had smeared a very powerful poison on her breast, and immediately after taking the baby on her lap, she pushed her breastly nipple within his mouth. She was hoping that as soon as he would suck her breast, he would die. But baby Krishna very quickly took the nipple in anger. He sucked the milk poison along with the life air of the demon. In other words, Krishna simultaneously sucked the milk from her breast and killed her by sucking out her life. Krishna is so merciful that because the demon Putana came to offer her breast milk to him, he fulfilled her desire and accepted her activity as motherly. But to stop her from further nefarious activities, he immediately killed her. And because the demon was killed by Krishna, she got liberation. As Krishna pressed her breast extremely hard and sucked out her very breath, Putana fell down on the ground, spread her arms and legs, and began to cry, "Oh child, leave me, leave me." She was crying loudly and perspiring, and her whole body became wet. As she died screaming, there was a tremendous vibration on the earth and in the sky, on the upper and lower planets, and in all directions, and people thought that thunderbolts were falling. Thus the nightmare of the Putana witch was over, and she assumed her real feature as a great demon. She opened her fierce mouth and spread her arms and legs all over. Alright. She opened her fierce mouth and spread her arms and legs all over. This is where I stopped it.
She fell exactly as Vritasura did, and struck with the thunderbolt of Indra. The long hair on her head was scattered all over her body. Her fallen body extended up to 12 miles, and smashed all the trees to pieces. And everyone was struck with wonder upon seeing this gigantic body. Her teeth appeared just like plows, and her nostrils appeared just like mountain caves. Her breasts appeared like small hills, and her hair was a vast reddish bush. Her eye sockets appeared like blind wells, and her 2 thighs appeared like banks of a river. Her 2 hands appeared like 2 strongly constructed bridges, and her abdomen seemed like a dried-up lake. All the cowherd men and women became struck with awe and wonder upon seeing this, and the tumultuous sound of her falling shocked their brains and ears and made their hearts beat strongly. When the gopis saw little Krishna fearlessly playing on Putana's lap, they very quickly came and picked him up. Mother Yashoda, Rohini, and other elder gopis immediately performed the auspicious rituals by taking the tail of a cow and circumambulating his body. In the meantime, all the cowherd men who had gone to Mathura to pay tax returned home and were struck with wonder at seeing the gigantic body of Putana. Nanda Maharaj recalled the prophecy of Vasudeva and considered him a great sage and mystic yogi. Otherwise, how could he have foretold an incident that happened during his absence from Vrindavan? After this, all the residents of Vraj came to prophecy of Vasudeva from the great sage and mystic yogi. How could he have foretold an incident that happened? Okay, after all this, all the residents of Vraj cut the gigantic body of Putana into pieces and piled it up with wood for burning. When all the limbs of Putana's body were burning, the smoke emanating from the fire created a good aroma of aguru. The aroma was due to her being killed by Krishna. This means that the demon Putana was washed off of all of her sinful activities and attained a celestial body. Mother Yashoda binds Lord Krishna. Once upon a time, seeing that her maidservant was engaged in different household duties, Mother Yashoda personally took charge of churning butter. While she churned butter, she sang the childhood pastimes of Krishna and enjoyed thinking of her son. The end of her sari was tightly wrapped while she churned. On account of her intense love for her son, milk automatically dripped from her breasts, which moved as she labored very hard. Churning with 2 hands, the bangles and the bracelets on her hands tinkled as they touched each other, and her earrings and breasts shook. There were drops of perspiration on her face, and a flower garland which was on her head scattered here and there. Before this picturesque sight, Lord Krishna appeared as a child.
felt hungry. And to increase his mother's love, he wanted her to stop churning. He indicated that her first business was to let him suck her breast, and then she could churn butter later. Mother Yashoda took her son on her lap and pushed the nipple of her breast into his mouth, and while Krishna was sucking the milk, she was smiling, enjoying the beauty of her child's face. So suddenly the milk, which was on the stove tap, began to boil over. Just to stop the milk from spilling, Mother Yashoda at once put Krishna aside and went to the stove. Left in that state by his mother, Krishna became very angry, and his lips and eyes became red in rage. He pressed his teeth and lips, and taking up a piece of stone, he immediately broke the butter pot. He took butter out of it, and with false tears in his eye, he began to eat the butter in a secluded place. In the meantime, Mother Yashoda returned to the churning place after setting the overflowing milk pan in order. She saw the broken pot in which the churning yogurt had been kept. Since she could not find her boy, she concluded that the broken pot was his work. She smiled as she thought, quote, "The child is very clever, and after breaking the pot, he has left his place, fearing punishment." After she sought all over, she found her son sitting on a big wooden grinding mortar, which was kept upside down. He was taking butter from the pot, which was hanging from the ceiling on a string, and he was feeding it to the monkeys. She saw Krishna looking this way and that way in fear of her, because he was conscious of his naughty behavior. After seeing her son so engaged, she very silently approached him from behind. Krishna, however, saw her coming toward him with a stick in her hand, and he immediately got down from the grinding mortar and began to flee in fear. Mother Yashoda chased him to all corners, trying to capture the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who was never approached even by the meditations of great yogis. In other words, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who was never caught by the yogis and speculators, was playing just like a little child with such a great devotee as Mother Yashoda. Mother Yashoda, however, could not easily catch the fast-running child because of her waist, because of her thin waist and heavy body. Still, she tried to follow him as fast as possible. Her hair loosened, and the flowers in her hair fell to the ground. Although she was tired, she somehow reached her naughty child and captured him. When he was caught, Krishna was almost on the point of crying. He smeared his hands over his eyes, which were anointed with black eye cosmetics. The child saw his mother's face while she stood over him, and his eyes became restless from fear. Yeah.
Mother Yashoda could understand that Krishna was unnecessarily afraid, and for his benefit she wanted to allay his fears. Being the topmost well-wisher of her child, Mother Yashoda thought, if the child is too fearful of me, I don't know what will happen to him. Mother Yashoda then threw away her stick. In order to punish him, she thought to bind his hands with some ropes. But when she tried to bind him, she found that the rope she was using was too short, by 2 inches. She gathered more ropes from the house and added to it, but still she found the same shortage. In this way, she connected all the ropes available at home, but when the final knot was added, she saw that it was still 2 inches too short. Mother Yashoda was smiling, but she was astonished. How was it happening? In attempting to bind her son, she became tired. She was perspiring, and the garland on her head fell down. Then Lord Krishna appreciated the hard labor of his mother, and being compassionate upon her, he agreed to be bound up by the ropes. Krishna, playing as a human child in the house of Mother Yashoda, was performing his own selected pastimes. After binding her son, Mother Yashoda engaged herself in household affairs. At that time, bound up to the wooden mortar, Krishna could see a pair of trees before him, which were known as Arjuna trees. The great reservoir of pleasure, Lord Sri Krishna, thus thought to himself, Mother Yashoda first of all left without feeding me sufficient milk, and therefore I broke the pot of yogurt and distributed the stock of butter in charity to the monkeys. Now she has bound me up to a wooden mortar, so I shall do something more mischievous than before. And thus he thought of pulling down the two very tall Arjuna trees. Delivering the extraordinary trees. There is a history behind the pair of Arjuna trees. In their previous lives, the trees were born as the human sons of Kuvera, and their names were Nalakuvara and Manigriva. The two great demigods, Nalakuvara and Manigriva, were the sons of the treasurer of the demigods, Kuvera, who was a great devotee of Lord Shiva. By the grace of Lord Shiva, Kuvera's material opulences had no limit. As a rich man's son often becomes addicted to wine and women, so these two sons of Kuvera were also addicted to wine and sex. Once these two demigods, desiring to enjoy, entered the garden of Lord Shiva in the province of Kailasha, on the bank of the Mandakini Ganges. There they drank much and engaged in hearing the sweet singing of beautiful women who accompanied them in that garden of fragrant flowers. In an intoxicated condition, they both entered the water of the Ganges, which was full with lotus flowers, and there they began to enjoy the company of the young girls exactly as the male elephant enjoys the female elephants within the water.
While they were thus enjoying themselves in the water, all of a sudden Narada, the great sage, happened to pass that way. He could understand that the demigods Nalakuvara and Manigriva were too much intoxicated and could not even see that he was passing. The young girls, however, were not so much intoxicated as the demigods, and they at once became ashamed of being naked before the great sage Narada. They began to cover themselves with all haste. The two demigod sons of Kuvera were so much intoxicated they could not appreciate the presence of the sage Narada, and therefore did not cover their bodies. On seeing the two demigods so degraded by intoxication, Narada desired their welfare, and therefore he exhibited his causeless mercy upon them by cursing them. Because the great sage was compassionate upon them, he wanted to finish their false enjoyment of intoxication and association with young girls, and wanted them to see Lord Krishna face to face. He conceived of cursing them as follows. He said that the attraction for material enjoyment is due to an increase of the mode of passion. A person in the material world, when favored by the material opulence of riches, generally becomes addicted to three things: intoxication, sex, and gambling. To cover the lower part of the body is a principle of human civilization, and when women or men forget this principle, they become no better than animals. Narada therefore thought that the best punishment for them was to make them immovable livable entities, or trees. Trees are, by nature's law, immovable. Although trees are covered by the mode of ignorance, they can do no harm. The great sage Narada thought it fitting that, although the brothers would be punished to become trees, by his mercy they would continue to keep their memory and be able to know why they are being punished. After changing the body, a living entity generally forgets his previous life. But in special cases, by the grace of the Lord, as with Nalakuvara and Manigriva, one can remember. The two demigods were favored by the causeless mercy of Narada and given a chance to grow in Nanda's courtyard and see Lord Krishna face to face. Although child Krishna was bound up to the wooden mortar, he began to crawl toward the twin trees in order to fulfill the prophecy of his great devotee Narada. Lord Krishna knew that Narada was his great devotee, and that the trees standing before him as twin Arjuna trees were actually the sons of Kuvera. I must now fulfill the words of my great devotee Narada, he thought. Then he proceeded through the passage between the two trees. Although he was able to pass through the passage, the large wooden mortar stuck horizontally between the trees. Taking advantage of this with great strength, Lord Krishna began to pull the rope, which was tied to the mortar. As soon as he pulled, the two trees with their branches and limbs fell down immediately, with great sound. Out of the broken fallen trees came two great personalities, shining like blazing fire. All sides became illuminated and beautiful by their presence. The The two purified personalities immediately came before child Krishna and bowed down to offer their respects and prayers. In connection with that, there's a spoken about maybe in Jiva Goswami's Sandarbha that there were some gopas and gopis that actually saw Krishna pull down those two trees.
Mm.
So when Nanda Maharaj ran out of the house to hear what the ruckus was, he asked the gopas, the cowherd boys, how did these two trees fall? And they said, Krishna pulled them down. I was like, what? No way. And also we hear that from that same source that Mother Yashoda was so distressed that Lord Krishna could have been killed by those two trees as they fell. She was petrified. Actually, she couldn't leave the house, and Krishna wouldn't go back into the house either because he had been punished by Mother Yashoda.
Right.
So because Mother Yashoda had previously punished him, tied him up to the mortar, he wanted to go back inside the house. He was stubborn in that way, and Mother Yashoda, she wanted to eat. She wanted to take any food. And Rohini Mataji usually gets involved in those sorts of situations.
Okay.
Balaram's mother, and she usually is the good guy to encourage Krishna to do what he's supposed to do. He wouldn't take it either from Rohini because Rohini laughed at him when he was tied up to the mortar.
Oh my God!
Laughed out of
Yeah.
So he wouldn't listen to Rohini Mataji either. But it wasn't until Nanda Maharaj explained to Krishna, what will your mother do if she's not eating? How can she continue to live? There's going to be no way for her material body to go on. And Krishna realized, oh no, Mother Yashoda is going to die. If she doesn't eat, and if I don't see her, then she won't eat. So that's how he goes back.
Giant brother. That's awesome. Where did you hear this from?
This is from Jiva Goswami Sandarbha. Spoken by Mukunda Datta Prabhu in a lecture of his.
Giant. That's very nice.
Yeah, there's so much more about these pastimes than what Prabhupada gives us. Mm-hmm. He obviously knows the right amount to give us. And actually everything is here within the books. These are his excerpts that we're reading right now, just compiled and edited by Dhanava Goswami. But Prabhupada has given us exactly what we need to... there's nothing lacking in what he's presented, but there is so much more, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. The other previous acharyas have highlighted and enlarged upon. So there's no shortage of literature in this Gaudiya Vaishnava Brahmanaga Sampradaya. We're very fortunate to have so much entertainment in these pastimes, so much details. Alright, almost done.
Yeah, it's not the last thing. Oh no, there's two. Lifting Govardhana Hill. When Indra understood that the sacrifice that was to be offered by the cowherd men in Vrindavana had been stopped by Krishna, he became angry, and he vented his anger upon the inhabitants of Vrindavana, who were headed by Nanda Maharaja. Although Indra knew perfectly well that Krishna was personally protecting them, as the director of different kinds of clouds, Indra called for the Samvartaka. This cloud is invited when there is a need to devastate the whole cosmic manifestation. The Samvartaka was ordered by Indra to go over Vrindavana and inundate the whole area with an extensive flood. Demonically, Indra thought himself to be the all-powerful Supreme Personality. When demons become very powerful, they defy the Supreme Controller, the Personality of Godhead. Indra, though not a demon, was puffed up by his material position, and he wanted to challenge the Supreme Controller. He thought himself, at least for the time being, as powerful as Krishna. Indra said, "Just see the impotence of the inhabitants of Vrindavana. They are simply inhabitants of the forest, but being infatuated with their friend Krishna, who is nothing but an ordinary human being, they have dared to defy the demigods." Ordered by King Indra, All the dangerous clouds appeared above Vrindavana and began to pour water incessantly, with all their strength and power. There was constant lightning and thunder, blowing of severe wind, and incessant falling of rain. The rainfall seemed to fall like a piercing sharp arrows. By pouring water as thick as pillars without cessation, the clouds gradually filled all the lands in Vrindavana with water, and there was no visible distinction between higher and lower land. The situation was very dangerous, especially for the animals. The rainfall was accompanied by great winds, and every living creature in Vrindavana began to tremble from the severe cold. Unable to find an, any other source of deliverance, they all approached Govinda to take shelter at his lotus feet. The cows especially, being much aggrieved from the heavy falls, bowed their heads, and taking their calves underneath their bodies, they approached the Supreme Personality of Godhead to take shelter of his lotus feet. At that time, all the inhabitants of Vrindavana began to pray to Lord Krishna. Dear Krishna, they prayed, you are all powerful, and you are very affectionate to your devotees. Now please protect us, who have been much harassed by angry Indra.
Upon hearing their prayer, Krishna could also understand that Indra, being bereft of his sacrificial honor, was pouring down rain that was accompanied by heavy pieces of ice and strong winds, although all this was out of season. Krishna understood that this was a deliberate exhibition of anger by Indra. He therefore concluded, this demigod who thinks himself supreme has shown his great power, but I shall answer him according to my position, and I shall teach him that he is not autonomous in managing universal affairs. I am the supreme lord over all, and I shall thus take away his false prestige, which has risen from his power. The demigods are my devotees, and therefore it is not possible for them to forget my supremacy. But somehow or other he has become puffed up with material power, and thus is now maddened. I shall act in such a way to relieve him of this false prestige. I shall give protection to my pure devotees in Vrindavan, who are present completely at my mercy, and whom I have taken completely under my protection, and must save them by my mystic power. Thinking in this way, Lord Krishna immediately picked up Govardhan Hill with one hand, exactly as a child picks up a mushroom from the ground. Thus he exhibited his transcendental pastime of lifting Govardhan Hill. Lord Krishna then addressed his devotees, my dear brothers, my dear father, my dear inhabitants of Vrindavan, you can now safely enter under the umbrella of Govardhan Hill, which I have just lifted. Do not be afraid of the hill and think that it will fall from my hand. You have been too much afflicted from the heavy rain and strong wind. Therefore I have lifted this hill which will protect you exactly like a huge umbrella. I think this is a proper arrangement to relieve you of your immediate distress. Be happy along with your animals underneath this great umbrella. Being assured by Lord Krishna, all the inhabitants of Vrindavan entered beneath the great hill along with their property and animals, and they all appeared to be safe. It's said that exactly as a child picks up a mushroom from the ground. Wow.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, it's so terrible. Despite him speaking to his friends and his society men about how he'll protect them, there's such love for Krishna. Well, first they couldn't understand how he was doing such an amazing feat, but also they were wanting to serve Krishna, and they were his cowherd boyfriends were with their cow sticks holding up the mountain. Have you seen that depicted?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, so they actually, Krishna allowed them all to think that actually I'm the one who's lifting up this hill.
Yeah.
I'm helping out Krishna, I'm carrying so much weight.
Right. My turn?
Yeah.
The inhabitants of Vrindavana and their animals remained there for 1 week without being disturbed by hunger, thirst, or any other discomforts. They were simply astonished to see how Krishna was holding up the mountain with the little finger of his left hand. Seeing the extraordinary mystic power of Krishna, Indra, the king of heaven, was thunderstruck and baffled in his determination. He immediately called for all the clouds and asked them to desist. When the sky became completely cleared of all clouds, and there was sunrise again, the strong wind stopped. At that time, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, known now as the lifter of Govardhana Hill, said, "My dear cowherd men, now you can leave and take your wives, children, cows, and valuables, because everything is ended. The inundation has gone down along with the swelling waters of the river." All the men loaded their valuables on carts and slowly left with their cows and other paraphernalia. After they had cleared everything, Lord Krishna very slowly replaced Govardhana Hill exactly in the same position as it had been before. When everything was done, all the inhabitants of Vrindavana approached Krishna with feelings of love and embraced him with great ecstasy. The gopis, being naturally very affectionate to Krishna, began to offer him yogurt mixed with their tears, and they poured incessant blessings upon him. Mother Yashoda, Mother Rohini, Nanda, and Balarama, who was the strongest of the strong, embraced Krishna one after another, and, from spontaneous feelings of affection, blessed him over and over again. In the heavens, different demigods from different planetary systems, such as Siddhaloka, Gandharva Loka, and Charana Loka, also began to show their complete satisfaction. They poured showers of flowers on the surface of the earth and sounded different conch shells. There was beating of drums, and being inspired by godly feelings, residents of Gandharva Loka began to play on their tamburas to please the Lord. After this incident, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, surrounded by his dear friends and the animals, returned to his home. As usual, the gopis began to chant the glorious pastimes of Lord Krishna with great feeling, for they were chanting from the heart.
I need to look at during that real quick. If you want to read this next paragraph, I'll do the last one.
Prayers by Indra, the king of heaven. When Krishna saved the inhabitants of Vrindavana from the wrath of Indra by lifting Govardhana Hill, a Subari cow from Goloka Vrindavana, as well as King Indra from the heavenly planets, appeared before him. Indra, the king of heaven, was conscious of his offense before Krishna. Therefore, he stealthily appeared before him in a secluded place. He immediately fell down at the lotus feet of Krishna, although his own crown was dazzling like sunshine. Indra knew about the exalted position of Krishna because Krishna is the master of Indra, but he could not believe that Krishna could come down and live in Vrindavana among the cowherd men. When Krishna defied the authority of Indra, Indra became angry because he thought that he was all in all within this universe, and that no one was as powerful as he. But after this incident, his false, puffed-up prestige was destroyed.
My dear Lord, Indra said, being puffed up by my false prestige, I thought that you had offended me by not allowing the cowherd men to perform the Indra Yagya, and I thought that you wanted to enjoy the offerings that were arranged for the sacrifice. I thought that in the name of the Govardhan sacrifice you were taking my share of profit, and therefore I mistook your position. Now by your grace I can understand that you are the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, and that you are transcendental to all material qualities. Jaya.
Jaya.
That was chapter